I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, May the 11th, brought to you in part by Vitalix. Vitalix has multiple options for controlling and repelling the fly population in your herd. Get the blue tub, get rid of your flies. For more information, go to Vitalix.com. Southern Plains continues to bleed lower on their fat cattle market, and they're leading the way, leading the market lower. They have been all through this downturn ever since we hit our all-time highs with the weighted averages in the 5-area feeding region well over 180, and now just bleeding lower, and they ended up taking 170 on Wednesday. And they probably would have took 165, maybe not on Wednesday, but by today on Thursday they'd have probably took that. They just can't resist the basis, and it is sizable, although not nearly as big as it was whenever you start bleeding lower, but just down to about $7 now is the basis to the June live cattle futures. That's exactly what it is. But they still like that. They just as soon take the $7 basis, feel like they sold cattle at 177 rather than trying to get the market back up to that area. But you know, when your Southern Plains is leading the market lower, and you think it's just a few guys that sell those cattle negotiated, how many guys is it? In Texas, you could count all the guys that sell negotiated cattle every week in Texas on one hand. You could count them on one hand. In Kansas, you could count them on two hands. It's very, very few. It's nothing. A lot of the guys that send their cattle to have them custom fed in the Southern Plains think they're selling negotiated, and they're really selling on the grid. Their feedlot manager tells them, "Oh yeah, we got 170 or we got 172." For the cattle, and because they want them to feel like they're market makers instead of market takers, but they're indeed market takers. There's very few guys that actually sell the cattle in a negotiated manner and get to haggle on them, and they really get wore out doing it, dragging this industry around, especially everybody else in the Southern Plains. It's a lot of weight on their shoulders, and my hat's off to them. I give them a hard time a lot, but I realize that it's the weight of the world on their shoulders selling those cattle every week. Casey Bradshaw is a good friend of mine. He sells the cattle in Texas for Consolidated Beef Producers. He is always in mind to try to get all he can for the cattle, but you know, it's a tough row to hoe there, guys. And then the few other guys that are there, if they sell out from under him, he may not get the customer's cattle that he has to sell gone. But you know, we're in tight supplies, and when we're in tight supplies, the market should not be going down. The Northern Plains are selling cattle still steady with last week, because they know there's not many finished cattle out there. The Southern Plains is not so much worried about whether the cattle are well finished or not. They've got so many days on them. They're going to continue to market the cattle, and they're not going to get backed up. And they want to keep clearing out their show lists every week. But you know, we're dragging this market lower with the Southern Plains. Southern Plains should continue to let the Northern Plains, it's got the best cattle, sell those cattle as high as they can, and then try to get as close as they can to that. You know, we sold cattle at Yankton, South Dakota on Tuesday up to 187. Are the cattle $17 a hundred better than the ones they sold in Texas and Kansas? Probably are. They probably are. One of my favorite feeder cattle buyers, I remember one time told me in Green City, Missouri, and he watches this, he'll remember that, and he'd say, "You know why the cattle bring so damn much money up here?" And I'd say, "Why is that?" And he said, "Because they're worth it." And they probably are worth that much more money in Yankton, but still, when you got one price, and I know this is the feeder flash, and I spend most of the time talking about the fat cattle market. Everything is a derivative of the fat cattle market when you're talking about cattle. all your classes of cattle, down to your pairs, bred cows, everything, turnout cows, thin cows, you're trying to get them rebred. Everything is a derivative of the fat cattle market, and that price is so important. And when we've got tighter supplies and a bleeding market, it's just tough on this industry. Your packers have never lost any money even through these record high prices. They've kept their margins in the black all the way through. Now they're back up there making reportedly around $100 a head. I think they're always making more than what they report. So every time I've gone through one of those plants, they're always pulling out little specialty deals that they have got a market for somewhere, and I don't think those are plugged in to all those profit reportings that they put out. But reportedly making around $100 a head. Well, they just raised the price on what they're selling. They've raised the box beef cutout values to offset what they're having to give for those cattle. Now they've got them up there. They're working the cattle market lower, making more money. If they can give all-time record prices, and still making money, I just hope that these guys that are giving these big prices for these feeder cattle can make money too. I think that they probably will, especially as corn continues to kind of ease off a little bit, especially the new crop. If we can continue to see some of this rain that's mostly been forecasted for near term, that we haven't seen that much of it really. There's some places that have seen it, but man, we've got forecasts for all kinds of rain coming all through the midsection of this country. I hope it comes to fruit. I hope we see that rain. I mean, you need it from top to bottom, really. I think they're in pretty good shape, extreme northern plains where they had the big snows. They're still waiting to get into the field to plant some of that corn and get their groundwork done up there. But you've got to try to keep this fat cattle market as good as you can. You owe it to the calf producers, and you owe it to the yearling guys. You owe it to everybody. Everything is a derivative of that fat cattle market. Your consumer price index, what people are having to pay for things, come out earlier this week. It said our consumer price index for food is up 7.7% over a year ago, but for meat it's up less than 0.5%. So we're not costing the consumers that much more by getting these good prices for the cattle, and the packers are still making money. There's room for money to be made in here, guys, if we can kind of share it around a little bit. But we spend 7 or 8 out of 10 years with the cattle guys getting left holding the bag and no profit. But let's talk about your board for Wednesday. June live cattle futures down 92 cents at 163 even. August down 37 cents at 161.17. Your back months were down 50 cents to up as much as 27 cents, and that's on the farthest out month traded. May feeder cattle down 55 cents at 205.37. August down 97 cents at 225.15. Your back months on your feeder cattle down $1.27 to up as much as a quarter on the one farthest out traded month. Grains came back a little bit from being down so hard, or corn anyway, from being down so hard on earlier in the week. May corn up 3 1/4 cents, 645.5. December up just 2.5 cents at 520 3/4. Beans are still down. May beans down 15 1/4 cents a bushel at 1436.5. November new crop beans down 3 3/4 cents a bushel at 1250 3/4. Your fat cattle trade, like I said, we've pretty much established it now. I don't think there's a lot of cattle to move in the northern plains. I'm sure they'll probably sell them if they can get some steady money, but man, they have really creamed them up there the last few weeks here. And the southern plains has established their market $2 lower at 170. So I know we saw some 171 late in the week. Nobody wanted to call it $2 lower last week. Well, if you didn't call it $2 lower last week, you got to call it $2 lower this week. But Iowa, 1,500 head sold on Wednesday, 2,400 head for the week. Live price 176 to 177. We had some 178 last week up there, pretty widespread, but that's fairly close to steady in Iowa, and that's the best cattle, fat cattle in the world right there, guys. And dress sales from 277 to 278. Nebraska, 700 head confirmed, not that many yet. 174 in Nebraska, somebody gave in there, and 268. Now that would be lower in Nebraska, but Iowa selling more and holding the market closer to steady. Kansas sold 1,700 confirmed. I'm sure there was a lot more than that after the 2 o'clock deadline. 169 to mostly 170. Texas, 1,000 that they had turned in confirmed, and a lot more than that after, all at 170. Sioux Falls Regional Livestock Market in Worthing, South Dakota, had a fat cattle auction where you compete and bid against one another. It's a real novel idea, guys. We should sell all cattle that way. Sioux Falls Regional Livestock sold conventional cattle 176.75 to 179, and some program cattle, non-implanted, drug-free cattle from 180 to 183. Market was actually a little bit higher than a week ago there. Box beef cutout values were lower. 306.87 on choice, down just 51 cents. Selects down 35 cents at 284.54. Slaughter 380,000 through the first 3 days of the week. I mean, they have sped these chain speeds up. I mean, the carcasses are swinging out like a dead cat if you were swinging it around over your head now. They're really cranking them up. Not working at all on Saturday. Some of them not working full days on Friday. But 380,000 through the first 3 days of the week, that's a pretty good clip. That's 4,000 more than last week, 15,000 more than the same time a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Livestock Risk Services, your LRP specialist, guys. You're turning cattle out. I know, all the cattle in the Flint Hills and Osage have been turned out here for few weeks, but other places, the foothills, the Rockies, and way up in the northern plains, just now turning cattle out. Get your LRPs, guys. Don't miss out on the big market that we're promised for fall. You can lock that in, can offset some of that expense with the government subsidy there. Don't feel guilty about taking that. Anybody else would too, but get a hold of them at Livestock Risk Services. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV Auction late in the day on Wednesday, sitting at 201.30. That was up a nickel, 100, so pretty well steady there. So sales been going along pretty good clip. We had a real stick-out sale I'm going to tell you all about here in just a minute. Continue to support the Punchy Pick of the Month contest. We've got some really cool ones in. Saw one on Wednesday that I think it has to be the pick of the month, but like I said, I don't pick them, but we get some cool picks in. We love to see the picks. We'd love it when the winners get their prize package that every one of them that's gotten has really loved. It is a full case of Fairpeace, that revolutionary product that calms the cattle down. It's just a topical product you put on. You don't have to wear gloves or anything. Doesn't affect us like it does the cattle. It doesn't have any effect on us, but it does tend to calm the cattle down, which is good for anything that you're trying to do. Also get some really cool stuff from Beaver Feed in Beaver, Oklahoma, and Beaver County Stockyards there that supports that program. Talk about your big sales on Wednesday. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, DV Auction broadcaster there, 7,900 head. Feeders were steady to $2 higher. Calves were $2 to $5 higher, while they're selling fat cattle cheaper, guys. I'm not sure how much longer we can keep doing that. Really hoping for the rain that they've got forecasted to come across that country. They've had some moisture, but they sure need more. Dodge City, Kansas, winter livestock had a lighter run, 1,500 head there. Poor market reporting said feeder steers were steady. Feeder heifers were a bunch higher, which doesn't make all that much sense to me. But anyway, hard to tell on a light run like that. But your National Beef Wire stick-out sale of the day was Bassett Livestock Auction in Bassett, Nebraska. They did not disappoint. had a big special there, 5,000 head on offer. Compared to 2 weeks ago, the market was very uneven, which it's been very uneven, especially this week and most of last week too. But look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central. Any one of these weight groups could be an individual quote, and just listen to them and think how many head is in these weight groups, these 100-pound weight groups, guys. 539 head of 4-weight steers in Bassett, Nebraska. They all averaged 454 pounds with the weighted average price on almost 550 head of them at $297.47. Wow. 641 head of 5-weight steers in Bassett. They averaged 549, weighted average price $285.33. That was helped by one string of weaned fall calves steers there. 130 of them weighed 540 at $306. Individual quote there. How about 740 head of 6-weight steers, average 650 pounds on the dot, average price $257.05. And 376 head of 7-weight steers in Bassett, Nebraska, average 706, average price $233.95. On the heifers, 664 head of 4-weight steer heifer calves, average 458, average price on those $270.09. 553 head of fancy heifer calves there in Bassett, Nebraska, average 543, weighted average price on all of those $257.89, helped by 131 head individual quote. 506-pound heifer calves bring $3 a pound right there at Bassett Livestock Auction. And they had 545 head of 6-weight heifers, average 635 at $229.29. Give you some other quotes from all around. How about Northeast Georgia Livestock in Athens, Georgia there? They're a DV auction broadcaster, and they have regular board sales there. Had their board sale on Wednesday. Had the Scott Mayer cattle from Newberry, South Carolina. Brings them down to Northeast Georgia Livestock to market them regularly. He sold a load of 775-pound steers at $206.10. And they'd have to put a lot of wheels under them to get them to a 5-area feeding region, guys. How about the Schooley family? Owns Bloomfield Livestock Market and does a good job running it there. They had a good sale on Wednesday. 61 head of steers weighed 836 and bring 213. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday, your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day, indeed come out of Bassett Livestock Auction. They called them thin on the market report. I'm not knocking them, but haven't seen too many thin cattle go through Bassett, Nebraska. I don't know if they would have been considered thin in Missouri or Oklahoma somewhere, but 90 head of them weighed 654. Fancy steers there bring 272. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.